Any moving object goes in a straight line, but for the moon, it is going around the earth as if something tied to earth. So, what is causing the moon to go around the earth? Let's explore this question in more sensible way. So, the talk is what drives the gravity. This is part of the series. I'm giving series of talks as part of what is holding the science from making a big leap forward. My name is Karunakar Marsakatla. Today is May 14th, 2024. When you look at the transformation of water into ice and ice into water, the distance between the molecules of water that was about to freeze will increase as it crystallizes into the ice. The just before the state where the water molecules are close to each other, when that becomes ice, so the distance between the molecules, when it forms as a lattice or crystal structure, the distance increases. So the separation of the molecules will release the binding energy of the cold water. When they are close, they are more binding energy. When they are a little bit further away, the binding energy will be less. So that difference in the binding energy will gets released in the process. In this case, density of the object decreases. When an object releases energy, the density also decreases because the molecules or atoms gets separated from each other. It occupies more space. So when ice again, and when you see the reverse, when ice absorbs energy, it turns back into water and increases its density along with the binding energy in the form of gravitational self energy. I'm calling the binding energy of all the objects as gravitational self energy. Let's see what does that mean. So gravitational self energy of an object is the total energy with which all of its atoms or molecules are bound together. When an atom or molecule separates from one object, then the energy equivalent to the bound energy of that atom or molecule with the rest of the objects gets released. So every tightly bound object will have a gravitational self energy, the binding energy of that object. So increase in the density will increase the gravitational self energy, and decrease in the same will release the energy. So because when the atoms or molecules are close together, that means like the density of that object is more. So in that case, the gravitational self energy will also be more. When they are separated, the density will be less, and then gravitational self energy gets releases in that process. So accretion of material that get bound to the object also increases the gravitational self energy of that object. And similarly, the loss of material will decrease the gravitational self energy of that object. Let's look at the when we stretch a iron rod, like first it becomes thin at the center. As you stretch it further, the rod becomes hard and eventually becomes like a string and breaks apart. So that we could observe when you kind of see any kind of science experiments or those kind of scenarios. So what is happening there? Um, the particles are being separated at the center. So when you are pulling the rod, the particles are separated, and that gets because they are separated, uh, their binding energy is being released, and then that becomes hard. Same thing happens when even you break a wire of iron by bending it back and forth. When it breaks apart, the wire will be hard at the broken ends. So when you kind of take a wire and then put it at the finger and then bend it around the finger, and then it eventually snaps and breaks. When you touch those broken ends of that wire, they look little bit hard, but where that getting that energy coming from, that because those particles were separated, the binding energy was released. So what does that indicate? Separation of particles, atoms or molecules generates the energy. Same thing happens. Exchange of electrons from one item to another might be the cause of release of energy in the friction of two objects. So when you scratch two stones or a similar scenario, there will be energy gets generated. So that could be one of the reason. But the other thing, if the particles comes off from one of those objects, that also releases the energy. When we can see this scenario, at the same time, separation of particles from objects also releases the energy. For example, a tire of a vehicle scratching a surface of a road releases few molecules of the tire after a certain distance. Like if it is scratching the surface of a tire like a road, the molecules of tire gets separated. So that separation will release the binding energy of those molecules which were separated from the tire. So looking at that, so what is holding the moon? So the gravitational attraction between the Earth and the moon also releases the gravitational self energy of both these objects. So each objects have the binding energy, gravitational self energy. Whatever the object, each and every object will have binding energy between those molecules or atoms. Similarly, we have binding energy for the moon and binding energy for the earth. So these binding energies involves in the process of gravitation. The stretch, so what is happening when the moon goes around the earth? The stretch of the moon, the gravity between the moon and earth stretches the mantle inside the earth. The stretch basically, continuous stretch cools the mantle than it was before. So that might be generating the energy for the to hold the moon around the earth, and also a solidification, or it could be crystallization of the inner core might be the cause behind the gravity of the earth. So the binding energy in the form like earth is releasing the energy in the mantle, or in solidification of the inner core, where when it solidifies, um, so basically, it's probably crystallization, in my guess. When it forms as a crystal, the nickel or the heavy metals that are at the inner core, when they form as a crystal, they kind of release that energy. So that energy is basically being consumed when an object gets attracted to the earth. And just like the moon also being, so those that binding energy within the earth is being consumed as it revolves over eons. So Earth is basically Earth is gradually losing its gravitational self-energy as it exhibits the gravity to the objects on its surface, and the moon revolving around it. So that's what. So this the mantle is cooling. It's because moon is revolving around the Earth, as well as the plate tectonics is the cause, but also the binding energy of the Earth as a whole. The gravity also makes it to decrease as the objects move around the Earth. This decreasing energy might be the cause for the moon to recede from the Earth bit by bit, year over year. So that Earth gravity is when it cools down, an object cools down, like crystallizes, it exerts less gravity. And also mantle, when it becomes it stretches, that also exerts less gravity. So that probably making the moon to recede year over year. It's basically receding from Earth bit by bit from the time when it was formed. So, so what is gravitation? Gravitation is not an energy-free activity. It's like gravity is the property of an object with a binding energy. Binding energy gets depleted as it exhibits the gravitation to its surrounding objects. So gravity is not a free activity, right? So the binding energies of both these objects, when they revolve around each other, gets consumed over the time. When all the binding energy is completely exhausted, the objects could easily break apart. So what? So gravity, according to the, when you look at the present concepts, we see energy, energy involvement in the gravitation. When two objects attract each other gravitationally, we see the energy interaction, but we still say that it's not energy. See, when there's a rock falling, when you drop from a height and put a glass underneath it, when the rock falls, the glass easily breaks. When something broken means there is an energy involvement is there. But why did the glass break if gravity is not energy? So that is current theories won't explain. And oceanic waves generated through gravity of the moon gets converted into electricity in some cases. There are some energy generation plants, I guess, and though where they get convert waves into energy, but still we call gravity is not an energy. We generate energy, we see energy when it's falling, but it's still we consider gravity as not a energy source. So a spacecraft gets a speed bump through slingshot using Earth's gravity, but still we call gravity is not a energy. So when you send the satellites further into the space, they bring it back after a couple of revolutions around the Earth. They bring it back around the Earth, close to the Earth, so that it gets a gravity push from the Earth, and then it gets its speed is increased. But without any energy source, without firing any rockets, without consuming energy, how that satellite getting energy to getting a boost in its speed? So there has to be consumption of energy somewhere. So, but current theory says that still gravity is not a energy. So we expend energy to lift a rocket against the gravity. So we are sending a satellite using the rocket to into space, right? So we're not just pushing it and then it's just going around the Earth, right? We are burning fuel, fuel or energy source, and then we are sending the um, satellites to rocket, and then that is consuming energy. So why, if it is not energy source, why we are using energy to go against it? We could have just thrown the satellite into the space. So, but still in those scenario also, we are saying that like gravity is not an energy. So moon supposed to go in a straight line. Instead, it is revolving around the Earth due to its gravity. But still, we call the gravity is not a energy. So it is very unfortunate that we teach kids this kind of logic. We experience something, we see something, and then we're telling the kids in the schools like this is not that, this is not energy. But the experience says something, but theory says something. So that's a very unfortunate thing to continue in schools. So gravity is basically energy, right? So energy utilization is very clear in gravitation. When we see the energy gravity interaction between two objects gravitationally, we see the utilization of energy in that interaction. So if gravity is a space-time curvature as it is being assumed in the present theories, then one should be able to explain how it will release the energy. But no, so far there is no such explanation. So space-time curvature, I don't know how that releases the energy. So there is no satisfactory explanation for that theory, energy involvement in gravity in space-time curvature. So gravitation between two objects releases the binding energy of the objects. So far people were thinking they don't know gravity, where it's emanating, what it is doing. So this is what, like, the binding energy of the objects itself is the gravity. So an object has more binding energy, it measures more gravity to earth, and then between more energy, the gravity between those two objects will be more. The binding energy itself is the gravity. If two objects were gravitationally bound together, then their binding energy will decrease over time. So they continuously revolve around each other. Their binding energies will decrease, get utilized in keeping them close to each other. So that's what is happening in gravitation, not the imaginary space-time curvature. So let's look at one scenario where Adam Savage visits a London museum to investigate a wheel that is running for 2 years in a stretch without external intervention. So there is something, a kind of example for the perpetual motion, but nobody accepts it because they can't explain it. So this is a perfect example for a perpetual motion that exhibit in some London library. So people uh, who are over smart, they think, they try to explain that, like, there is a battery involved somewhere, and then that might be supplying the energy to the wheel. But if that is a battery and that is running for 2 years, and you generating that much energy, why can't that technology be used in real life scenarios? There might be extraordinary discovery or kind of technology involved in that battery. Why not we use that battery in the today's cars? So instead of doing some other research, if that inventor, that creator of that wheel has advanced technology of the battery, why can't we use it? Dismantle, do the X-ray, take that item and do the X-ray, and then I'll dismantle it, and then find out what kind of battery is being used, and then use it in the technology. So they won't do it. It's kind of something masterpiece kind of thing, but so that is not the case. There's no battery. That's a basically perfect example of earth gravity being utilized to run the earth binding energy being utilized in running that wheel. So that is basically a perfect example for the perpetual motion. So what is happening in that case? The wheel was designed to be imbalanced on the right and left side. So left side probably kind of a parallel kind of bar or a liquid something, and then the right side it could be vertically or something. So those imbalances, one way close to the central axis, and the other is away to the central axis. So that creates an imbalance, and then due to this imbalance, the gravitational pull will be more on one side and a bit less on the other. So um, that triggers the motion in the wheel. And then the rotation of the wheel sustains on the utilization of gravity of the earth. So basically, Earth gravity, Earth binding energy being utilized by that wheel in running continuously because of the imbalance within the wheel. So the energy being consumed from the gravitational self energy of the Earth. So that's what happening in every gravity scenario. So I explained these concepts almost like 15 years back in a book called Gravity from a New Angle, that is there out there in Apple Books or Google Play Store or Amazon Kindle or as a paperback in Amazon store. So that is the concept of gravity I visualized when I explored anomalies in gravity. Um, so the summary, what's the summary from this talk is that like gravity of an object emanates from the gravitational self energy of the object. So it is the total energy with which all of its atoms or molecules are bound together. Gravitational self energy of an object gradually depletes as it exhibits the gravitation on the objects in its vicinity. So wherever there is a gravitational attraction between two objects, the binding energy of those two objects gets consumed proportionally depending upon how much material is there in those two objects. So it is not an imaginary curvature of space-time. Space-time, saying gravity is just space-time and then escaping from explaining what the nature of gravity is absurd. The stretch in the mantle and the solidification or crystallization of the inner core are driving the gravity of the earth. The binding energy, energy within the earth itself, is driving the gravity on of all the objects that it attracts. So that is what actually happening in reality. So this is, as I told, this is part of the series. What is holding the science from making a big leap forward? There are theories, there are alternate theories, but they are not being discussed in science. So what is happening? That's why I started a series to explain, find out, and propose what is the solution for this kind of absurd theories to reign the throne of physics in everywhere, wherever it's being taught, and in the universities or colleges. So the series I started with on April 26th with the introduction, and then I first talk was how the species evolved into egg-laying, how they differentiate, like divided, diverged from one another, one gestation and one egg-laying. That was the first talk. And then the second talk I gave what is happening when you ionize an atom. Um, the ionization, negative and positive ionizations, actually taking the energy from the nucleus. When it expands or collapses, the particles within the nucleons within that atom, when they separate a bit from each other, that releases energy, and then they come closer to each other, then that will gain the energy. So that I discussed in that second talk, and this is the third talk. So my goal in the series is I list couple of my discoveries in detail, and that's what I'm doing right now. And then I'll publish what are the solutions, what are the drawbacks, why it's happening to science. Most of the theories they propose and do the research and make, oh, we got a confirmation from there, we got a confirmation from here, but none of them make sense. So why we have that kind of situation is happening in sciences? So that's what the drawbacks I want to explore in that coming videos. And then at the end, I'll propose what is the solution for this chaos, how it will end, what will the ideal environment to um, do the research, publish, and share the knowledge. So that I will post at the end. So and then this talks, share it wherever it is applicable. Not lot of theories, existing theories, won't make any sense if whatever I propose as the theory for the gravity in this talk and in my book. So many of the theories gets revised, many of the theories pushed to the edge, maybe become popular again, because with current understanding of gravity, many of the observations were pushed aside, like saying that is not valid, and many people proposed many alternate things. They all will come back in the future. So if you find any such scenario, any such person, forward this talk to, share them with them, and be part of the change. So change is going to happen to sciences. That's coming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching.